to start off with the famous panel questions. Thank you, Tamsin. First off, are you a Democrat? Have you filled out and submitted your King County Democrats candidate questionnaire? All right. Are you a member of your LD or the 34th? You're not a member of your LD, John?
No, I moved from the
Okay.
but I
Okay. That was my next question. Did you attend any of your LD meetings in the last year?
Is the sharing account?
Yeah. All right. Are you a PCO? Okay, take that to no. Okay. And last time, have you ever visited or volunteered at the White Center, Highline, or West Seattle Food Bank?
Is the Rainier Valley Food Bank account?
I was going to ask that next, Michael.
Okay, so there's no.
Okay. What about your own local food bank? All right, thank you very much. So now we're going to start off with verbal questions and answers. You will have 1 minute for each question. And we'll start with position number 1. Okay, John, the Port of Seattle has experienced a loss of good-paying maritime jobs and is threatened with gentrification. What can you do about that?
Well, thank you, Marcy. That's a very important question that we're facing right now. The South Seattle industrial area accounts for 1/3 of the city of Seattle's tax base. It's $3 billion a year in economic revenue. These are great-paying, blue-collar industrial jobs that we need to keep here in our city. But we're really under threat by gentrification. We're under threat by, in my opinion, bad tax policy. And we're under threat because we're not investing in our roads. Number one, we need to support the transportation package that Judy Clifford is pushing in the state legislature. Get 509 built from the airport south to I-5. The port, we have goals, 25-year goals to almost double seaport cargo and triple airport cargo. We can't do that without 509 built. We need to deal with the harbor maintenance tax on a federal level that shippers coming into Seattle pay, but we don't benefit from. We need to deal with streamlined sales tax, so it discourages, disincentivizes warehousing districts. And thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you all. It's good to be in front of a good bunch of Democrats here tonight. I agree with a lot of what John just said, and I just want to add, it's also the Fisherman's Terminal and the industrial areas up in Ballard. There's 5,300 jobs a year, roughly, up in the Fisherman's Terminal that are created that average a wage of about $72,000 per year. That's a great blue-collar family wage job. There is gentrification going on up there, just like there is down in DeSoto and Duwamish industrial area. We need to make sure that the port does whatever it can to help improve transportation, help improve the facilities and infrastructure of the port and the airport, so we can attract more cargo, and at the airport more passengers, so that we can keep these good jobs here in Seattle.
Thank you.
Good evening. So my name is Stephanie Bowman. I am a newly appointed Port of Seattle Commissioner, 3 days on the job. I live in South Seattle, the Beacon Hill area, so directly above the port, so we're affected by it every day. Prior to my regular day job, I worked at the Port of Tacoma for 5 years, and there's a real difference down in Tacoma versus the Port of Seattle. The county, the city, and the port are 100% aligned down in Pierce County in terms of support for industrial and manufacturing jobs. And that's something that I'd really like to see the Port of Seattle be able to work better with the city and the county on that. I think that the arena debate that we've had over the last couple of months is a perfect example of how that is not happening, that alignment. It's something that I would really work for. The second thing that I'd add in terms of the jobs is we need a career ladder. We don't have a career ladder for workers, particularly at the airport, to be able to move up from minimum wage, low-skill jobs to the higher jobs.
Thank you. And we'll start this next question with Michael. And I'll be asking questions of all three of you this evening. Okay. The Port of Seattle Commission recently gave themselves a 700% request pay raise. What is your position on the pay raise? How did you vote, or how would you have voted?
So I was also an applicant for the appointment process that Stephanie Bowman was successful at, and also was Courtney Brickler, who unfortunately couldn't be here. And I was in it before they voted on that pay raise, so I was willing to do the job for the $6,000 a year. But I do believe that the $6,000 a year was insufficient for a port commission. It is really a 20-hour-a-week job. And $6,000 a year probably wasn't attracting the right kind of candidates to run the position. You tended to get people who were retired or who had special interests on the port. And so I did support a pay raise. You could argue about whether it should have been $42,000 or something else, but I did support a pay raise.
Thank you. Stephanie?
So similar to Michael, I was an applicant for the Port of Seattle, and so obviously didn't have an opportunity to vote on the pay raise. What I said at the time, I agree that it needs to be have raised at least up from the $500 a month that it was, or is actually right now, currently. But what I will say is that I mentioned this to Tom Albro, the current Port of Seattle Commission president. I don't know exactly how he came up with the salary, but I would have taken it to an outside commission, such as the Municipal League, to do a review of what it might be. I think it should be higher than the $6,000 a year. I don't know if the salary that he's proposed is a good one or a bad one, but I think that it should have been somebody else from the outside reviewing it so people can have more exposure and transparency to the process.
Thank you. John?
Well, thank you, Marcy. And I'm a sitting commissioner, so I support it and I voted for the pay raise. We looked at doing it at the $42,000 level because the Port Commission, similar to the state legislature, is sort of a part-time, full-time job. When I first ran for the commission, people were saying, oh, it's a part-time board position. Well, no, it's not. It's not like a corporate board where you might meet once a quarter or once a month. We have 3 standing meetings a month, sometimes more than that. Each commissioner is on other boards and commissions on behalf of the board. I'm on the Freight Mobility Strategic Investment Board, the Visit Seattle Board, the Highland Forum, a group of airport community electeds. I'm on the Puget Sound Regional Council. Each commissioner does a lot of other things. And so it's minimum 20 hours a week. And you can argue that port commissioners shouldn't be paid, but you can't argue that it should be a part-time job. And if you're not paying a decent amount for a port commissioner, then you just leave it to people of financial means or people of special interests.
Thank you very much. And Stephanie, we'll start with you this time. Assuming the port on its own will not be able to stop coal train traffic or the building of a sports entertainment facility in Soto, what is your plan to mitigate traffic effect and maintain freight mobility if they go through?
Well, I've worked on, thanks for the question. So I've worked on freight mobility issues for just under 17 years, both in the state legislature and back in Washington, D.C. when I worked for the Port of Tacoma. There are several things that we can do that we haven't been doing enough of. One is maintaining investments in the FAST corridor, and I know John can talk a little bit about this too. The FAST corridor is a strategic plan to do grade crossings throughout the entire region, and that's one of the best things that we can do to move freight efficiently and quickly and minimize the impact on communities. And it also helps with air quality because cars aren't backed up waiting for a train to cross, idling the whole time. In terms of the arena, I'm hoping, I think there's an opportunity for us to take a look at what else needs to be done. We shouldn't have to wait for a crisis like the arena coming forward in order to figure out what needs to be done. Just in the last couple of weeks, I know that the Port Commission, the Port staff has put together a list of the strategic projects that need to move forward. They should have done that a long time ago, quite frankly. I was very surprised that it took so long. We have a lot of projects, particularly in the Soto area, that need to happen.
Okay, thank you. Can you pass it to John and then Michael?
Well, I agree with Stephanie, and just to add to that, the arena really concerns me because back of the envelope to mitigate the impacts of the arena, well, we're looking at $300 to $500 million of investment in Soto infrastructure projects, and that's a huge amount. And, before I was a commissioner, I really disliked the Hyman initiative machine. Since becoming a commissioner, I've learned to hate it. He he's really gutted our transportation budgets. And in the last, before 15 years ago, before the first Hyman initiative, the port used all our money to invest within our fence line. Since the Hyman initiatives, we've put over $360 million of port money into state and local roads projects. That's the Deepwater Tunnel. That's the Fast Corridor projects, as Stephanie mentioned. That's the East Marginal Way grade separation. That's State Routes 519, 509, 518. But we realized if we don't participate, that's also the South Park Bridge and other projects, but we've realized if we don't participate in moving these projects forward, they won't get done, and they're critical to freight mobility. So the port has to continue to be a voice.
Thank you. Michael.
So what I'd say is when you look at these issues about the arena and the coal train and freight mobility, moving through that, we do need to continue the projects that John's talking about, getting out there and doing infrastructure development outside the fence line of the port. And one great way we can be doing that is going and really making sure we keep the lines of communication open with the city council, with the mayor's office, the county council, county executive's office, so that when a big project like the arena comes up, that they know that we should be brought in at the beginning. The Port Commission was not brought in at the beginning of the arena proposals. Had we been brought in at the beginning of the arena proposals, maybe there would have been a different result in terms of what mitigation was available for freight mobility. And so I think partnering and making sure that lines of communication between the City Council, County Executive, and the Mayor's Office is crucial to making sure that these projects move forward.
Thank you very much. Let's start now with John. Okay, number 4. Port truck drivers work under very difficult conditions. What can the port do to improve their situation? Should the port approach the Teamsters or the ILWU about organizing the independent contract truck drivers?
What I love about the 34th, you guys are educated on port issues and you ask the tough questions. So this is a very difficult issue. The port truck drivers are primarily immigrants, Somalis, Ukrainians. They're at the bottom of the economic totem pole. They drive these broken down old trucks, the worst polluting trucks all over the port. In the last few years, we've worked with the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency to help clean up the trucks. But they get paid by the trip, and they sit in traffic. They don't get paid by the hour. So, a lot of them are barely making ends meet, and I do think it's a social justice issue. I do think the port has a role in addressing it. The issue is we're a discretionary port, as many of you know. 70% of the cargo that comes in through the Port of Seattle doesn't end up here. It goes to the Midwest, to the distribution centers in the Midwest. And if we put any upward pressure on costs, those shippers, they have no loyalty anymore. They just look at price, and they'll go to British Columbia, they'll go to California, they'll go to the East Coast, which has not the same labor standards, not the same environmental standards as we do.
Thank you, Michael.
So John is right. This is a social justice issue. As you said, these truck drivers tend to be immigrants. I know a lot of the Somali and the Ethiopian Eritrean truck drivers live in my district in the 37th. I've been doing extensive outreach to a lot of these communities to get them involved in our communities, and their working conditions aren't poor. One of the things I would like to see, there was a study done down in LA Long Beach about converting the drayage truck fleet to clean natural gas. And it showed that if a clean natural gas truck was 40 to 60% less on fuel costs, which for these guys would be money in their pocket. Now I would encourage the port, and hopefully they will, look at that study, see if it would work here in Seattle, maybe do another study here, and then find a way to see if there's a way to get clean natural gas in these trucks. That way we can improve the air quality, we can give these guys more money in their pocket, even if they still only get paid per piece. And yes, I would love to see the ILWU or the Teamsters try and organize these guys.
Thank you very much.
I think we're all on the same page on this issue, and in fact, the Teamsters have already started to try and organize the truckers, which I think we all support. I would say, in terms of Michael's point, though, to the LNG, it's a great point. It's just how do you go about doing it? Because the trucks are owned by the truckers themselves, and so we would need to find a way to make that investment and make sure that it's equitable for all of the truckers. There are some programs out there, Sierra Solutions, which is based down in Portland, and they have invested, helped truckers get low-cost loans can't just increase costs at the Port of Seattle and expect that nothing is going to happen. You have to have a regional solution for the truckers that is Seattle and Tacoma and actually Portland and all the discretionary ports. It can't just be the Port of Seattle trying to deal with this issue on their own.
Thank you very much. What I'd like to do now is give you the same opportunity I gave the Seattle City Council. Give you each 30 seconds to say something else, and I'll just start with John since he's a sitting commissioner at this point.
I know this is not the endorsement process yet, but I look forward to coming before the 34th. I actually drew an opponent this time around, Republican Mayor Pete Lewis of Auburn. So I'm really working hard to retain my seat, and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do what it takes to retain my seat because we need more progressive voices on the commission. And I know some in the business community are gunning for the progressive commissioner. So you guys are always very in tune to the Port Commission races, but I would encourage you to really pay attention this year.
Thank you, John.
So thank you, and again, I'm going to look forward to coming back to your endorsements meeting next month, and hopefully we'll secure your endorsement. It would be a great honor to be endorsed by the 34th District Democrats. And the one thing I would also mention that hasn't been discussed really here tonight is the port has a huge impact on travel and tourism, which I have over 15 years of experience in. Over 10 million people come and visit our city and county every year, and the first point of entry for them is either SeaTac Airport or the cruise terminal. And those are vital operations in the port, and I think that having someone with experience in travel and tourism on the Port Commission would help with the infrastructure and modernization and developments they need to do at SeaTac Airport.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight. The one thing that I did get to mention earlier is what I do on my day job. I'm the executive director of a statewide nonprofit association that helps low-income families build assets, home ownership, education, personal savings, and starting a small business. Things that help people have an economic safety net so that if they have a medical issue, they lose income, they have something to fall back on. And more importantly, for really low-income families, it gives them a step up, getting up into the middle class. I feel like my day job and my recent appointment to the Port of Seattle Commission are perfectly aligned in the fact that the Port of Seattle has the opportunity to use our public resources to help people move up into the middle class,